So in the past, we've looked at the contents of fire kits and replenishing those fire kits with homemade fire starters. Today, we're going to be looking at natural fire starters found in and among the woodland around us. So, let's take a walk. So, we'll begin with my go-to natural fire starter, the birch, moreover the bark. The bark of the birch is full of oils, particularly betulin. Betulin is hydrophobic, meaning water-fearing, so not only is the bark waterproof, it's also flammable. Hence why you can get the bark burning even in damp conditions. So there's a couple of ways we can play this. We can simply take a strip of birch bark, put a lighter to it. Not that one. Put a lighter to it. Simple. If using a ferrocerium rod, we can rip the bark into little strips, create a nest and strike within. Alternatively, we can scrape the bark into a pile of fine powder and then ignite. So what tends to happen is when we light our birch bark and a flame takes a hold, the bark will begin to curl in on itself. Like so. Traditionally, you can create a birch bark spill by folding a square of bark in concertina fashion, and this prevents the bark from curling up as it burns. Now, of course, it's important to note that if you are removing bark from a live tree, you want to remove as little as possible, as this will leave the birch vulnerable to bugs and diseases. You definitely don't want to remove an entire circumference worth of bark from the tree, as this will be extremely detrimental. Where possible, use dead birch. There's plenty of them, and the bark is very much still usable. Fan favourite among fire starters, resin, needles, cones. You're pretty much spoiled for choice with this tree. Good old dried pine cones can make excellent fire starters. Now, some people add wax to their pine cone fire starters in an effort to keep natural. All we need is a flame and a pine cone. I dropped it, but you get the picture. And where there are cones, there are needles. You can always rely on the thick, dense cover of an evergreen during those wet winter months to keep things dry at the base, which is where we're going to find our needles. Collect up enough of these needles, you put them together, you'll get a fire going post-haste. So there's one thing that a lot of these fire starters have in common, and that's all super dry, and that includes dead grass. Fire post haste. The bottom of this fallen larch is just dripping with resin. Another excellent fire starter. And with that resin, one thing leads to another. That one thing led to another, and you get fatwood, the resinous remains of a pine tree that has died. So when a pine tree dies, the sap settles into the hardwood of the trunk and branches. And as the tree rots, the sap hardens into this resin-soaked wood known as fatwood. So you can see the difference in color. The darker it is, the more resin you've acquired. Not to mention that smell. So we're giving our fatwood a good old scraping. We've got our really delicate fatwood shavings. We also have a few wisps of fatwood right here. Strike it just like so. So if you spend a bit of time in the woods, you'll probably come across this soft, spongy type of wood, punk wood. So if you watched the video when we replenished our fire kit, we made char cloth. We can do the same thing with punk wood, char punk wood, and it has the same results. So we have a tin here with a hole in the lid, exact same process. We're just gonna break this apart. Drop it in. I don't know why I chose today of all days to do this video. It's like 30 degrees out here and we're having a fire. It's always worth remembering you can't overchar, you can underchar, but if that's the case, you just throw it back on the fire. Fire's burned out. That's what we're looking for. So we have our piece of charred punk wood. Same process as the char cloth. Ferrocerium rod. Works exactly the same. Transfer that into your tinder bundle and you're away. So if you have a bit of time on your hands, you can always zone out, make some feather sticks, creating these delicate little curls that catch light nicely. I still got to put that practice in. Mines aren't perfect, but yeah, practice. Feather sticks. Of course, you could set them alight with a lighter, but it is possible to hit them with the ferrocerium rod. So there are some mushrooms that can hold an ember nicely. I'm going to give them an honourable mention because for the life of me I cannot find them. Cramp balls, horseshoe fungus, they are eluding me. I also give an honourable mention to fire by friction, bow drill, hand drill. Definitely a worthy technique of practicing. Yeah, I'm still practicing mine. So that about sums up our natural fire starters found in and among the woodland. Maybe you learned something, maybe you haven't. Regardless, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one.